Yes. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. My name is Jennifer Young, and I'm the Vice President of the Church Board. I've been asked to share my thoughts on the meaning of this church in my life and why I've chosen to serve. So my story of how I became a Unitarian, I think, is fairly common. I attended the Presbyterian and Episcopalian churches in my youth. At a very early age, I experienced a cognitive dissonance between what I was learning at church on Sundays and the social environment that I experienced the rest of the week. So there are numerous, sometimes searing memories of things that happened along the way to fully disengaging with traditional church. For me, I didn't know if there was a God or not, but I was so uncomfortable in an environment that was judgmental and intolerant that I decided to take my chances on possibly spending eternity in hell. I figured that I would have good company. However, my parents had instilled in me a strong sense of community service and charity that led to a feeling that I should be doing more. So when I learned about the Unitarian Church after moving to Los Alamos, I decided to see what it was about. At the same time, however, I became involved in search and rescue, which derailed my involvement with the church for about 15 years. At some point, I decided to take Kok Young's Tai Chi class here in the fellowship hall. Kok Young invited the students to help her in the garden before class, and then somehow I ended up helping on Sunday mornings before church, and then drifted into the sanctuary to hear the sermon. The opening welcome statement was quite moving, and is still quite moving, and I continue to want to become more involved and connected to this church. So to me, this church represents a safe haven where we can come together in community to grow personally and spiritually. I don't know why I'm so emotional. There's no pressure to believe in one way versus another. We're free to serve each other and society according to our interests and talents. For this, I'm very grateful. I've chosen to serve in various capacities to give back what I can to the church and community. It's been a great learning experience so far on the board, but there's still a ways to go. Thank you for your support. And, okay. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are at this moment, wherever you are on your life's journey this morning, you are welcome into this community. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors or first-time guests we have among us this morning. Our minister, the Reverend John Cullinan, would love to meet you after the service as we gather for coffee and conversation in the fellowship hall and answer any questions you may have about our community. New parents are encouraged to speak with Tina DeYoe, our Director of Lifespan Religious Education. There are many options for young children in worship this morning. For our youngest members, there's nursery care available down the hallway just past the restrooms. So that way, our nursery coordinator, Sarah Hamoud, will be happy to check you in. Children are also welcome up front at our young worshipers space or at our intention table. And you may, of course, continue to sit with your parents here in the sanctuary or in our quiet space in the library. And now, please take a moment to center yourself, breathe deeply in and out, and let us begin.
It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love. a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home, and come, let us worship together on this beautiful morning. Would you all please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening hymn, number 322. Please remain standing and join in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. Please be seated. Candles have been lit this morning in celebration of today's Diwali celebration. Happy Diwali, aka the Festival of Lights. Prayers for Taryn Reeves' health concerns, hoping to get answers this week. And sadly, we have two reasons to light our candle of life this Sunday. We light them for Jean Vischer and for Sally Wilkins. Jean and her husband, Bill, were longtime members of this congregation. Jean moved up to Colorado Springs not long after Bill's death to be closer to family, and she died peacefully at home with her family around her. Sally Wilkins and her husband, Ron, are also longtime members of this community. Sally, as is noted in the candle book, died far too young after a brief stay in hospice with pancreatic cancer. A memorial service celebrating Sally's life will be held on January 13th, and we will send out reminders as that date comes closer. But now, as is our tradition, I light our candle of life and ask for a moment of silence for Jean Vischer and for Sally Wilkins. Please join with me now in a spirit of prayer and reflection. Eternal and beloved, gracious source of all life and all love, we come together this morning grateful for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to ourselves, to one another, to our communities, and to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. Let us look into the eyes of our friends and neighbors this day and see ourselves in them. May we find that our souls are inextricably linked and that our lives are made to matter, are given meaning by our bonds with one another. In this season of dwindling light, let us tend to the fire in one another's souls, so that this gathering of free minds and hearts might become the beacon to the world it wishes to be. May we find courage to open up space in this circle for all those who see that beacon and feel called to join their own light to it. Let the embrace of this community be for us strength and support. May its love and intention be written on our hearts so that we may carry it with us wherever we go. May we never doubt our own worthiness or the worthiness of others, of a place in humanity and in this circle of care. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen.
So I would like to invite all the young and young at heart to come forward for a time for all ages, if you want. Roman's already here. Sweet. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Barb. So I gave y'all some homework last week, if you remember. And if you haven't done it yet, that's okay. I have more hearts, and you can write what you intend to do. So last week, we talked about our theme for the month, generosity, right? So that's our theme this month that we're talking about, and that Reverend John's talking about in his sermons. And we talked about the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And we talked about a little boy, Roman played the boy, right? Yeah, brought his loaves, his bread loaves and fishes to Jesus, right? Back in the day, this is written in the Bible. And Jesus then prayed over those. And guess what happened? The boy who inspired his own sharing, he used his sharing to inspire the crowd to do the same, right? To share their loaves and fishes. Maybe that's what happened, right? None of us lived back then. We don't actually know. But the story is written down as such. And so we are talking about that generosity and sharing that can inspire others to be generous and share. So I gave y'all some of y'all, after the story, when we acted out, I gave y'all $1 to do something good, to pass on that generosity and sharing in the world, right? And if I didn't give you $1, I asked you to use one of your dollars to do that. So I wanted to share, and we would see how we multiplied our dollars over here with the hearts. So if anyone wants to share what they did with their $1, or maybe what you intend to do still, which is totally fine, and you can write it on the heart here and tape it up. We have some writing utensils on the table. Does anyone want to share what they did? Maybe. Anyone? Roman, I know you did something with your $1. What'd you do? Do you want to share? Yeah, okay. That's okay. Does anyone else want to share? Yeah, Paul, here. I'm going to pass the mic around. This is interactive.
Well, I finally downloaded Givelify because I kept procrastinating on that. So now I'm giving to the intention, because usually I just look down and see if I have some extra cash, and it's an excuse not to pay it forward. And so with the extra cash, I made the download. I don't like downloading apps, so it's a big thing for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And you can tape your thing up if you want. Yeah.
The custodian in my facility wanted to have lunch, and she left her money home, so I gave her that $1 plus more to get lunch.
Thank you for sharing. Who else has one? Do you have one you want to share, Elisa?
I really couldn't think of anything, but I was intentional about looking for opportunities, and there were 2 teachers at Mountain School who needed help this week, financial help, and so that was a good time to do GoFundMe and give to these teachers who are in need.
Thank you. And you can tape yours up too if you want. Anyone else want to share? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll go back there and then up here.
I might have added a little bit, but I donated to the Bailey family who lost their mom last week.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's great. Okay. Yeah, I'll go back there. And then
I gave some to the Los Alamos Animal Shelter. There was a nice donation bucket in one of my doctor's offices. And then I also bought some fruit and put it into Gaia's pantry.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, you can put your heart up. Oh, Patrick back there in the sound booth.
I brought some cough drops. I used the $1 as part of buying some cough drops for the high school students in the musical. I went to go see the Frozen musical on Friday, and instead of flowers, I gave them cough drops.
That helps, definitely. Singing and talking a lot, right? That's awesome. Cool. And there's a few more other hearts over there that got put up last week or this week. So there's someone put their dollar in the offering. I gave someone my dollar. Yeah, that's good. And then someone bought soups to put in Gaia's pantry too. Yeah, so those are some of the things. Anyone else had one they wanted to share? You want to share? Yeah.
Friday, I went bowling, and then I went to dinner, and I gave the rest of my lunch or my dinner to a homeless man.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. Sharing with like our food, right, that we have. So I hope that as you see more hearts being put up there and you heard more folks sharing today, that continues to inspire your sharing this week and in the future weeks, right? In this time of generosity and giving. So thank you for multiplying our hearts, because we give from our hearts. And thank you for multiplying that generosity in our community and outward, because I think when we do that, it just has those awesome ripple effects, right? So that is our time for all ages today, because I gave you all that homework assignment. So we will see you next week. And yeah, you can go back to your seats, hang out here, write on hearts over here at the table or coloring pages, and put up your heart anytime you want. Thank you for sharing.
The minister's discretionary fund here has been in place, I think, for a good decade at this point. And over the years, you all have been incredibly generous in funding that, and I've been able to help many, many people over the years out of some sticky situations. Normally, the calls I get come from other agencies in town who have a need they can't meet quite yet, and they know I have some money to help out. So I'll hear from JJAB or Firstborn or the victim's advocate at the police department or things like that. We have this thing, this immediate need. It's a one-time thing. Can you help out? Can you pay that? Yes, I can. Not too long ago, a little while back, I got a direct call from someone in need. And this happens surprisingly less than you might expect. Direct to my office phone. Does your church help out people in need? Well, yes, we do. In certain circumstances, yes. See, I'm living in my car right now, and this guy I know has a casita he can rent me, but I need to come up with a $500 security deposit today. Is that something you can do? Now, I've been burned before, so I was reluctant. But in the back of my head, I didn't want to say no right away. I wanted to be sure that the money I gave, if I gave it, was going to go to what it was being asked for. So how do I ensure that that happens? How can I make sure that the money is doing what I want it to do? And I thought maybe I could dip back into the greatest hits of the philanthropists of the last century when giving big bequests to colleges, universities, other nonprofit institutions, and put some kind of hitch in there. Like the guy who, back in 1907, told Swarthmore College that was just getting off the ground, I will give you $3 million, which was sizable in 1907. I will give you $3 million, but you have to stop participating in all intercollegiate sports. And Swarthmore said, well, we need the money, but we also need students who want to play sports. And they ultimately turned that gift down. There was a story of a granddaughter of one of the founders of Quaker State Oil, who back in the late 60s willed $2.5 million to Auburn University on the condition that they also take over her dog ranch. She was addicted to adopting stray dogs and had a ranch with 150 of them on her property. And in order to get $2.5 million, Auburn University would have to rehome all of the dogs, which they did. So they got the money and they earmarked it for veterinary research. Ha ha. An alumna of Radcliffe University, at a date I don't know, once gifted the university with a rather gorgeous, rather expensive piece of jewelry, a jeweled necklace, with the stipulation that the jewelry was not to be turned into money. No, she was giving it to the university so that the president would wear it at every public function they were at. And a little more recently, back in about 2008, 2008? Yes. At University of Colorado, a business graduate offered a gift of $25,000 to the university. Very modest. But still, there was a string attached to that gift. There had to be a plaque with some kind of motivational statement placed outside one of the men's rooms at the business school. The university took the money, and there is a motivational plaque outside the men's room at this particular school. No, it said, here you go. Not just do it. The best ideas often come at inconvenient times. Don't ever close your mind to them. In the 19th century, the fabric mills in England would mark the imperfections in a bolt of fabric, and because everything was getting mechanized, it was frequently imperfections in what was being woven. They would mark on the end of the bolt a little string where the imperfections were, so people would know where to find them in the fabric. And if a clothier, it's say London, making custom suits, wanted to get their hands on a bolt of fabric that had no flaws in it so that they didn't have to waste time and energy working around something, they could just use the bolt, they would shop for fabric with no strings attached. With no strings attached. Today, we throw that phrase around to mean there are usually stipulations to a gift of some sort, and frequently they are onerous, unhelpful to the organization that is being given to. There is something unpleasant and unworkable in the gift. In order for the gift to be given, it comes with strings. As all of our funny people in this list of university donations points up. The question is why? Why do we do this as a people? Why are there so many stipulations put on the gifts we give to the charities, to the organizations that we believe in, especially those who are possessed of the financial wherewithal to actually give $2.5–3 million, not me. Why is this? Researchers in the psychology of giving and researchers in the arts of fundraising have pegged that, for the most part, at best, we want to be sure that the money we're giving is actually going to help, that it's actually going to be used for what we think that we're giving for. It's wrapped up in a lot of anxiety, the financial anxieties we all carry. At best, that's what's going on. Or, as is probably the case in some of the gifts I described earlier here, out of spite, we do it. There's something about the organization we weren't happy about, and so we're giving the gift, but we're going to make sure that they've got to be punished a little bit before they get their hands on it. Or somebody wants control over the resources of an organization or its agenda. They want them to do something specific, whether or not it falls within that organization's mission or not. I want control. And at its worst, it's because we want to make sure we're getting a good return on our investment. It took me very little Googling to find that there is no shortage of articles and papers from financial advisors and economists talking about charity like it's an investment, like you're planning to get something out of it in the end. There is that mindset in this country. Now, most of us are not in that financial position to give a gift with those kind of strings attached to it. But we swim in this culture, in the United States at least, and so those things that permeate giving culture overall, they settle down in us, and we start to internalize some of those things. And while we may not be giving $3 million to Swarthmore College, we are presented with opportunities all the time to give to organizations and to individuals in need of money, because more often than not, the thing that really helps most of all is money. It's more likely that you're going to wind up in a situation like I did, where you're approached by somebody who you don't know, say, in need of cash. Who here has encountered a panhandler in the past? What do you do? Do you give or do you not? Majority of Americans do not give to panhandlers when they come across them. And the major reason that we don't give to these folks is we're worried they're going to squander the money. Big charity getting a big corporate donation might worry that organization's going to squander it on champagne at the board meeting or destination vacations for the board meeting or something like that. On that smaller level, we worry that the money is going to be squandered, most likely on drugs or alcohol and/or. That's one of the permeating myths in our culture about folks who are in that situation when we want to give to them. They're all substance abusers, and they're just going to use the money for more drugs. So either we don't give, or we buy them a meal, which is great, and I'm not slamming that in any way. But more often than not, for people in the situation of being unhomed, it's cash and the immediacy that is going to be the thing that most helps them maybe get a step out of that. And yet, as a majority, we Americans tend not to give because we have anxiety, because we don't trust the person who is receiving it. I don't know that you're going to use it for what you just said you were going to use it for, so I'm not going to give it to you. And as a result of capitalism in this country, one of the other elements that creeps into our decision-making in giving at any level is what I'm going to call paternalism. I know what you need. I know what's best for you. So I'm going to give this to you if you do what I think is best, if you do what I think you need. And coupled with all of that, the sense of othering that comes in when we're in one of those transactional moments. It's me and the poor. It's me and the homeless. We tend to talk about these populations as if they're some sort of constant monolith in our country and not the place any one of us could wind up after one bad day. Coupling all that together, when we choose not to give in that moment, we're attaching a different set of strings to the gift that we're not giving. We're setting up a litmus test that everybody is destined to not pass as soon as it is. I don't know you're not going to spend that on drugs, and therefore I won't give. There's not even a chance for a person to prove themselves. There are strings that bind us at our heart, bind our hands together from giving what it is that we can in that moment. And it's the same if we write that back over large organizations as well. We don't trust organizations, and sometimes they deserve not to be trusted. There are plenty of nonprofits out there who have squandered and misused funds in the past, but it's an outlier, not a given. And there's a little bit of an othering that's going on, just facilitated by the fact that there's an organization between us and the people we want to help. There's a level of separation there that makes it easier to see it as me helping them. Let us help you help them. And there's the sense of paternalism. I know what your organization needs to do. I know what you need better than you do, and so I'm going to give you this money, but you have to use it for rehousing dogs. I know that's not your mission, but that's what we need in this moment. So here is some money to find homes for dogs. We see the sense of paternalism played out in this country in how different organizations receive money from corporate donors. A recent survey of nonprofit foundations found that white-led organizations are far more likely to receive corporate donations than organizations run by black people or people of color. And even more so, strings attached to the gifts will happen to organizations run by black people or people of color than they are by organizations run by white people. The strings of control are in there. And we like to think of ourselves as reasonable people. We like to think of ourselves as rational people. We like to think that when we're making these gifts and adding those strings, we are doing it because we've made an educated guess about the situation, about what is really needed right now, without often stopping to consider, does the organization doing the work, does the person living the life perhaps know a little more about what they need in this situation than anyone else? Do we really know what we know when we're making our decisions of whether or not to give, of whether or not to give freely or not? Let's look at the issue of substance abuse and the homeless. By the best estimate, researchers can figure out at least a third of the homeless population in the United States suffers from some kind of substance abuse disorder. And that's not an insignificant percentage. That's 1 out of 3. That's a lot. And all by itself, you might think, yeah, that's a problem there that I don't want to add to, I don't want to support. But when you put it side by side with the statistics for the entire population, we get a completely different picture, because out of the entire population of the United States, 1 in 4 people suffer from some form of substance abuse disorder. So the percentages aren't that far off. What we know for certain is that substance abuse is a major problem in this country. What we don't know is that it's corralled only in the population we call the homeless. It's more correlation than causation there. It's more a reflection in that population of the wider population we live in. Do we know what we know? And statistics aside, maybe they do use it for drugs and alcohol, maybe not, but ultimately it doesn't matter, at least to me, because in the long run, it's money that makes the difference in living in poverty or living out of it. It's money that makes the difference in being able to execute a program on behalf of people in need or not being able to do it. So do I pay this security deposit for the gentleman who has called me? I realized the issue in that moment was not, or that what I needed to disabuse myself of in the moment was not to worry about what if they misuse this money. What if they misuse this $500? Instead, shifting my point of view to this, what if the use of this money is the turnaround this person is looking for? What if this little thing in the grand scheme of things is the thing for this one person? Because I fully remember being the dude in that position at one point. Back in the 90s, the figure was $250, not $500, adjust for inflation. $250 at one point, not long after I got out of college, was the amount that was standing between me and a downward spiral into more and more financial ruin. And because somebody who knew me, saw I was struggling, gave me that money as a gift, not a loan, not to be paid back, I survived young adulthood. I was in that position. So how can I not? What's your landlord's name, I asked. And he gives me a name. I said, all right, I'm going to be here till 3. Come on by and get your check. And he brought his landlord with him, who I was able to make the check out to directly. So in the end, I knew my money was going where I hoped it would go. But even if the landlord hadn't come with them, even if I just had the name, I still would have made the gift. I just put a much easier test to meet around it. Is there somebody directly who this money is going to? Instead of putting some kind of onerous stipulation on the whole thing that no one could ever meet. Because that's the deal. You cannot underestimate the impact that the little things you do have on the people and the organizations and the causes that you care about. For individuals, for organizations. And we can look at the first Obama campaign and the difference that microtransactions and micro-donations made there. Little things make a difference. And yet in this country, the bigger the fund, the bigger the organization, the tighter the strings that we put on it. Because we're worried it's going to be wasted and abused. Here's a chance for a quick point of view shift for everybody. One of the biggest reasons that Americans don't give to organizations is because they want it to go to the programs and not the people in the organization. I want my money to go to the need, not to pay the guy who does the thing. People, programs, not people. 80% of Americans believe that organizations should try to keep their overhead, including the salaries, to less than 30% of their overall budget, which, if you know anything about budgeting and about the cost of labor in this country, is nothing. Is nothing. I want to support the programs, not the people, even though the people are the ones making the programs happen. And organizations looking to get the money they need frequently report that they're staying under 30%. They file things under different numbers to make things look lean enough, even though they're paying more in overhead than they think they do. And because the reports say they're keeping it as lean as they possibly could, the expectation from givers is that they'll be able to keep things even leaner, and we get into this cycle that the Stanford Society for Social Innovation calls the nonprofit starvation cycle. They're meeting my demand to keep their overhead down so they can do even better at keeping it even more down. I want my money to go to the work and not to the people, like the work can do itself, like the programming of the nonprofit exists as its own discrete entity separate from the people who make it possible. Do we know what we know? Do we know better than those doing the work? The people who do the work, I hope we can agree, deserve at the very least a living wage for the work that they do. Because why should we enforce a unsolicited vow of poverty on people just because they chose to work outside of the for-profit sector, outside of the corporate world? What it comes down to in my mind is this: if you believe in the work somebody is doing, if you believe and admire the work somebody is doing, why not just give what you can to keep it going? Yet a high percentage of Americans judge an organization on how the money is spent, when the real test is what impact are they having on the world they are working in. Are they doing what they promised? Can we measure the difference that they are making in the community, in the country, in the world that they're working in? What else matters? The more conditions we put internally or externally on the gifts that we give to the organizations we believe in, the more that gift becomes more about our own insecurities or our own ego assuasion. It's a brush with our innate capitalist tendencies, because that's the culture we swim in as well. What am I getting for my money? When we should take to heart that the only return on investment we should expect from the gifts we give to the organizations who make the world a better place is the world is a better place, which is a return on investment for everybody. December 31st is fast arriving. I know you're going to be inundated with solicitations for charitable giving to help you with your taxes. To help you with your taxes, they're doing it for you. Let's not pretend. It's a good time to give as any. And I'm not saying sell all you have and give it to the poor today. No, I am not Jesus by any stretch of the imagination. And honestly, that would be self-defeating, because what will we do after that? Become clients of the organizations that we're giving to. No. When you are asked, give what you can from what you have. Give from where your great gladness meets the world's deep need. Give from a place of joy. But don't wind yourselves too tightly in those strings. The strings of ego, the strings of scarcity, the strings of the need for control that we all want because we're fallible and human. Cut back the strings. May it be so. As we prepare to return to our everyday lives, it is time to give something of the gifts of this congregation back to the larger community we are part of. It is time for our offering. During the month of November, all cash and undesignated funds we collect on Sunday will be given to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee in support of their work on behalf of our values in the wider world. The offering will now be accepted. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. With these gifts, which we have freely given and gratefully received, we say yes to the values of our faith. May these gifts help us live and serve our faith within and beyond our church walls. Important announcements and upcoming events can be found on the back page of your order of service, in our monthly newsletter, The Voice, through our email announcements list, and many other channels, but a few to highlight today. A few, I say. There's a lot going on these next couple of weeks. First up, stick around after the service for our monthly forum. This month, Tina DeYoe, our own new Rev Tina DeYoe, will be talking about her experience on her ministerial internship in Eugene, Oregon. Next Sunday after the service, we'll be having a Thanksgiving potluck. Everybody is invited. Barb Franzak is organizing that, and there's a sign-up sheet on the Simple Ways to Serve board in the fellowship hall if you would like to bring something to that. But join us nevertheless. After the potluck is the annual crop walk for the Church World Service and their programs in eliminating hunger around the world, and in our own community here. A portion of the money raised stays right here in Los Alamos to help out with food organizations here. Registration for that starts at 1:30 in the afternoon at the middle school, and the walk will happen in a loop around in that neighborhood as well. There's more information on flyers at the welcome table and on the side table over here for more information. We will be participating once again this year in the county's holiday light parade. Patrick Webb, hiding back there in the AV booth, is coordinating our efforts to put our float together this year. If you want to help out or you want to participate marching and riding on the float, have a talk with Patrick, and we'll get as many hands together as we can to make this a really good float this year. Our collection for the Deming Migrant Shelter is still ongoing through this entire month. We've already collected quite a number of solid goods for that. If you go in the fellowship hall, you can see what's already been boxed up from the donations so far. That program also is in need of cash donations. We are short on that as well. So if we can't give what's on the list, even if you can, if you'd also consider a cash donation to that project, we would appreciate it. Tyler Taylor in the back there can tell you who to make a check out to if you're given that. And finally, our refugee coat drive is also going on through Interfaith Los Alamos. We are not asking you to purchase coats. We are going to be getting gift cards for the organization to do the purchasing of the coats. You do not have to buy a gift card. We just ask that you make a donation in $25 increments that can be paid in the office, and we will handle getting the gift cards and getting those over to Interfaith Los Alamos. And now would you all please rise once more in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn number 331. Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.